July 29, 2026. 7 names who, for over a decade, have been South Korea's pride, global pop culture icons, a symbol that music doesn't need English to conquer the world, posted the exact same statement at the exact same time on their individual Instagram accounts. Jimin, Suga, jhope, Jimin, Jungkook. 7 posts, 1 identical key sentence, and within minutes, their hashtag pushed every other topic off the charts worldwide. Not because they dropped a new song, not because they announced a concert, but because BTS had just done something no group of this magnitude has ever done to the most prestigious music award ceremony on the planet. They turned down the Grammys. Not the Grammys rejecting them, like we've all half expected before. This time, BTS themselves said, "We're not participating this year." Why? What's really going on behind this decision? And why did the CEO of the Recording Academy himself have to issue an official statement just hours after the announcement? In this video, we're breaking down the full timeline, from a hugely successful comeback album, to a massive performance at the 2026 World Cup final, to a shocking decision that many media outlets are now calling one of the boldest protests in the history of the global music industry. Get comfortable. This isn't gossip. This is fact, and it's changing how the world looks at the Grammys. Before we dive into the core issue, let's get the context straight. Because this moment didn't happen in isolation. It's the culmination of a long journey full of old wounds. BTS just finished mandatory military service, an obligation every South Korean man must fulfill, including all 7 members. After years apart completing their individual duties, they finally reunited in full and immediately hit the ground running with their 5th studio album, titled Erarang, released in March 2026. This wasn't just any comeback. It proved that their time away hadn't diminished their power one bit. Erarang shot straight to the top of Billboard's main charts, both singles and albums, and triggered an enormous global response. It didn't stop there. BTS went on to launch the World Tour Erarang, which just wrapped its European leg in Paris. And as the crowning moment, they performed on arguably the most watched stage of the year, the 2026 World Cup final halftime show, on July 19th at MetLife Stadium, New Jersey. Picture this: 11 minutes on the same stage as Madonna, Shakira, and Justin Bieber. BTS performed Dynamite, the song that symbolized their pandemic-era comeback, this time in front of one of the largest audiences in the world. So when we talk about their decision to turn down the Grammys, this isn't a group fading into irrelevance and chasing attention. This is a group at the absolute peak of their popularity, a group that was, in fact, the most anticipated to finally win their first ever Grammy trophy, after years of nominations without a single win. And it was precisely at that peak that they said, "No, we're not doing this one this year." To understand why this decision hits so hard, we need to rewind a bit. Because BTS's relationship with the Grammys has long been marked by hope, repeated and repeatedly crushed. 2021, nominated for Dynamite. Lost. 2022, they came in with a Mission Impossible themed performance for Butter, a performance so powerful it earned a standing ovation. Ironically, Butter was dominating the charts for over 8 consecutive weeks at the time. Still, the trophy slipped through their fingers. The following year, more nominations came through, yet to come, and their collaboration with Coldplay, My Universe. Same result. Nothing. Even individually, the pattern kept repeating. Jungkook's 7, practically the anthem of summer 2023, also failed to bring home a win. The 7 BTS members themselves aren't outsiders to this industry, either. All of them have actually been voting members of the Recording Academy since 2019, meaning they're not just nominees, they're part of the very system that decides who wins in other categories too. So this year, with a comeback as strong as Erarang, public expectations for BTS's first win were running higher than ever. This was seen as the perfect moment. Every element was there: a chart-topping comeback, an exploding world tour, top-tier media spotlight through the World Cup stage. And it was exactly at this most mature point that the decision came. Now let's get to the root of the issue. About a month before BTS's announcement, the Recording Academy, the organization behind the Grammy Awards, announced the creation of a new category called Best Asian Pop Music Performance. On paper, This category sounds like a form of appreciation. It's designed to recognize artistic excellence in Asian pop music performances, covering genres like K-pop, J-pop, and C-pop, with an emphasis on the meaningful use of Asian languages in the work. But that's not what most fans and industry observers picked up on. What they saw was this: a special category created right at the moment when Asian artists, especially K-pop, were absolutely dominating the global charts. And the suspicion was simple but sharp. Is this category really a form of honor, or is it a subtle way to sideline Asian artists from the main categories like Record of the Year, Song of the Year, or Album of the Year? One fan highlighted by international media publicly expressed their disappointment. They said they felt confused and let down upon hearing about this new Asian category, because to them, it felt like a way to keep BTS out of the main, more prestigious categories, as if this new category was actually sidelining Asian artists rather than uplifting them. This debate isn't actually new in Grammy history. The Recording Academy has a long track record of creating genre-specific categories, and the criticism has always been the same. Do these categories genuinely celebrate diversity, or do they become a safe space so non-Western music never has to compete head-to-head in the main categories widely seen as more prestigious? And it was right in the middle of this already heated debate that BTS, the most successful Asian group in the history of American charts, took a stand. Their position was firm: we will not submit our music this year. Wednesday, July 29, 2026. Up until that point, there had been no sign of what was about to happen. Then, almost simultaneously, all 7 official BTS Instagram accounts posted an identical statement. Not through their agency, not through a formal press release, but directly from each member's personal voice, addressed straight to the millions of fans around the world. The message essentially stated that they had decided not to submit their work for Grammy consideration this year. They hoped their music could be heard and loved for what it is, rather than being divided by region or language. And they closed with thanks to ARMY, the name for their global fan base, and everyone who has always stood by them. Pay close attention to that wording. They didn't attack anyone directly. No names were mentioned, no harsh accusations. But the phrase, "not divided by region or language," clearly cut straight to the heart of the controversy surrounding the newly announced Best Asian Pop Music Performance category. This wasn't a loud, shouting kind of protest. It was calm, measured, and precisely because of that, far more powerful. The impact was immediate. The news spread instantly across major global outlets, from Variety, Deadline, CNN, to Korean media like the Korea Herald. All of them highlighted the same thing. BTS had just taken a step no group of their magnitude had ever taken against the Grammys. Now here's the part that made this moment even more intense. How did the Grammys themselves respond? Recording Academy CEO Harvey Mason Jr. didn't need much time to speak up. That very same night, he issued an official statement to multiple media outlets. In his statement, he expressed sadness upon hearing BTS's decision not to participate in this year's Grammy process, but said that as a fellow music creator, he understood and respected their decision. He also explained an important technical detail about how the Grammys work. Artists who submit their work in a specific genre category, like Asian pop, can still submit that same work for general field categories, such as Record of the Year. In other words, according to him, the new category wasn't meant to replace opportunities in the main categories. On the purpose of the category itself, Mason Jr. emphasized that the Asian pop category was created to celebrate the depth, diversity, and extraordinary growth of pop artistry coming out of Asia, with the intent of giving a dedicated spotlight to these important artists. Interestingly, this response came across as both defensive and diplomatic at the same time. Mason Jr. didn't strike back at BTS, but he also clearly defended the Recording Academy's decision to create the new category. And that's what makes this moment so unique in the history of artist-Grammy relations. It's not just about who wins or loses. It's about two massive institutions, the world's biggest music group and one of the world's most influential music award bodies, both issuing official statements, showing surface-level mutual respect, while clearly standing on opposite sides of a representation issue. Once the news broke, social media instantly became a massive battlefield of discussion. Most of ARMY, the name for BTS fans, welcomed the decision with pride. For them, this wasn't just about boycotting one award show. It was about dignity. It was about their favorite group refusing to be boxed in simply because of where they're from and what language they sing in, even though their chart performance and sales have long matched, or even surpassed, many top-tier Western artists. The discussion also touched on a much bigger debate: how the Western music industry, particularly in America, has treated non-Western music for decades. Some saw this genre category as a genuine form of appreciation, but many others viewed it as an old pattern, creating a separate space that's comfortable, so the main categories can remain dominated by artists who've long been considered the industry standard. This moment also emerged amid another interesting dynamic. That same year, the K-pop wave within the Grammy world was already buzzing hard. Blackpink had submitted their songs across multiple main categories. Rose collaborated with Bruno Mars on a track widely seen as one of the strongest songs of the year, potentially paving K-pop's way into the most prestigious categories. Even some individual BTS members, jhope, Jimin, and RM, had reportedly submitted solo work for Grammy consideration that same year. So the context becomes even more compelling. This isn't just BTS versus the Grammys in isolation. It's happening right in the middle of a massive K-pop momentum that's genuinely breaking down the doors of the Grammys' main categories. And it's exactly at that point that this separate category for Asia appeared, which many read as a step backward rather than forward. This debate even made its way onto American news programs and radio shows, analyzed by music journalists who specialize in K-pop and Asian pop culture, examining whether BTS's decision could become a genuine turning point in how the global music industry approaches representation. Let's take a step back now and look at the bigger picture. Why does this moment deserve to be called, as this video's title suggests, a possible beginning of a new history? Because this isn't just about one group getting upset and skipping one award show. This is about a group with BTS's level of cultural power, a group that performed at the World Cup final halftime show, whose albums routinely top the Billboard charts, whose fan base spans nearly every country on Earth, choosing to use their position to speak out on a structural issue within the music industry. For years, many hoped change would come from within, through lobbying, closed-door discussions, behind-the-scenes negotiations. But what BTS did here was different. They chose the most visible path, a public refusal, in front of the entire world, with a message that was clear yet respectful. This puts the Recording Academy in an uncomfortable position. On one hand, they have to defend their decision on the new category. On the other, they just lost the participation of one of the most influential artists in the world. In the very same year, the Grammys are also making their first ever move from CBS to ABC, streaming on Hulu and Disney+, after more than 50 years on their old network. So the question now isn't just, will BTS win a Grammy this year? Because the answer is already certain. No, they're not even in the running. The bigger question is, will this decision force the Recording Academy to reevaluate how they handle genre categories like this going forward? Will other major artists, from other genres and regions, start feeling emboldened to take similar stands? Because if BTS, a group with this level of sales and popularity, is willing to risk missing out on their first ever Grammy win for the sake of a principle, that sends an extremely powerful message to the entire global music industry. The 69th Grammy Awards are scheduled for February 7th, 2027. With BTS off the nominee list this year, all eyes automatically shift to other K-pop artists still in the running, including Blackpink, Rose, Lisa, Jisoo, ENHYPEN, and Katseye, to see whether they can break into the main categories while also answering the criticism surrounding this new Asian pop category. And of course, everyone will keep watching how the Recording Academy responds moving forward. Will they keep this category structure as is? Will there be adjustments after this level of public pressure? Or will BTS's relationship with the Grammys stay cold for years to come? What's clear is that one thing has already changed for good. The conversation about how the Western music industry categorizes and treats non-Western music is now far more open, far louder, and involves far more voices than ever before. And all of it was triggered by 7 simple sentences, posted simultaneously on Instagram, by 7 people who, over the past decade, have already proven that music doesn't need anyone's permission to be heard by the entire world. So, That was the full timeline and context behind BTS's major decision to turn down the Grammys this year. Not empty drama, not baseless gossip. This is a real decision, with real impact, currently sparking a massive conversation about representation in the global music industry. What do you think? Is the Best Asian Pop Music Performance category a genuine form of appreciation, or a subtle way of separating Asian artists from competing in the main categories? And will BTS's move actually change anything, or will it just fade into a headline forgotten a few weeks from now? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this video helped you understand what's really going on, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the latest updates on how this situation develops ahead of the February 2027 Grammys. See you in the next video.